It is Sunday, April 19th. Joe Dalaron Juts. Welcome to today's COVID-19 Task Force update. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. Not as beautiful weather-wise as we had yesterday, but hey, we'll take it. Joining us today, and he is the only gentleman on the show, let's welcome our Commissioner of Public Safety, Lloyd Phillips. Lloyd, it's all yours.
Thank you, Joe. Again, this thing is going crazy on us. I guess it's time to get a new one. It's making a mess of every time something comes up here. It seems to have its plays tricks on us. Anyways, good afternoon, everybody. And like Joe mentioned, it's not the great weather we had in the past day, but it is what it is. And today, what I want to do is just to touch base on and reinforce, I guess, a few messages that we had done over the past couple of days, and maybe touch on a few of the numbers and some of the updates and some of the projections that Quebec has been putting forth to the population in general. Before I do that, I just want to mention I like to thank the reading to the local papers and some of the the stories of encouragement and some positivity that's out there. So I certainly appreciate hearing that we need a little bit of positivity in our life, because we're still here. We still got to see our way through this and make the best of what we can get, and not keeping in mind that sometime somewhere down the road we will get through this, and the only way we'll get through it is sticking together and doing what we're doing. Just a couple of points, and maybe some people had seen it yesterday. There was several military helicopters that flew by the region down the St. Lawrence Seaway in that area. As I mentioned on Friday, that the situation in the long-term care facilities, the old age homes in Montreal area, and even in Dorval and the West Island are in dire straits. And the Premier of Quebec did actually call in the Canadian Armed Forces for their medical division to come and assist in these long-care term facilities. So they have about 125 or so nurses and other medical people who are going to be going to the Montreal area to assist. As well as you may have heard, he also put the call out for other physicians who are currently not working because of their surgeons or other specialty fields that are currently not operating. He put a call out for them to go and assist, because that is the most vulnerable population that we see around the world. And right now, Montreal is struggling very, very hard to keep that death rate as low as possible, and that's a very unfortunate scene that they're having over there. With that said, today, obviously the latest numbers were updated just around 1 o'clock this afternoon, and there was a total of 877 deaths in the province of Quebec. That's up about 70 from the day before, and a little over 100 the prior day. So if you look at Friday, it was roughly 688. Now we're approaching almost 900. So we're averaging approximately 100 deaths per day, which is certainly an alarming number to hear. And a matter of fact, Quebec had upped its minimum expected rate of people who will die from COVID-19. If you recall, I was here a couple of weeks ago with a chart that showed that approximately 1,250 people they estimated would succumb to COVID-19. Now they're bumping that estimate up to around 1,400. So they upped it by about 200 people or so, what they're estimating at the end of the day. That's kind of, I guess, the bad news, but the good news in that is also the fact at the rate of the increase in the way it's currently being stretched out, as we talked about, flattening that curve, the amount of people getting sick is continuing to increase. The death rate is continuing to increase, unfortunately, but the way it's being stretched over a period of time, the hospitalization rate in people who require the intensive care unit, people who may require ventilators and things of that nature, there will be enough beds available. If the current trend maintains, anybody who requires a ventilator will have a ventilator. Anybody who needs an ICU bed will have one available. But again, that's on the current projections with the current measures that are in place and maintaining that course. because things have changed a lot in the past month. Today is the 19th of April. It was May 18th, so just about a month ago today, the first death from COVID-19 happened in the province of Quebec. Now here we are, a month later, and we're at approaching 900. So a lot of things happened over a very short period of time, but the measures put in place in our community and across Quebec, again, that whole flattening the curve is really paying off. It's unfortunate people are still gonna die, to be honest, to be blunt, but people who are going to contract into the disease and require the medical care at the current rate, they will be able to receive the proper care that could give them the best chances of survival. So that is, I guess, some good news on that front, if there is a glimmer of good news in there somewhere. No, with that, we've been talking about a couple of times now, saying we are approaching that peak or the height of the pandemic. Nobody's 100% sure when that peak or that height will actually be. Previous estimates were saying around 18th, 19th, so around this period of time. But looking at the latest projections again, we're still on target, for that peak between now and the next week. Just because you hit the peak is not one day and then it starts to drop off. Once you hit that peak, you'll maintain that level for a period of time before you start seeing those numbers drop off. And the only time you really know for sure that you had reached the peak is, unfortunately, only after you're past it. Once you see that trend of those numbers coming down over a period of a week or so, and it keeps trending in the right direction, then you are actually over that peak, and then now you start looking towards the recovery side and hopefully keep those numbers on the downward side. Because if you see a little dip, from day to day, there's 50 less deaths in one day than the next day, but that could easily go back up. So yeah, it's overall it's a whole trend in which you want to really watch, and we'll see in a week or so where we are. Hopefully, those numbers are going to start to stabilize. Even though they stabilize, that's a good thing in one sense, but just because they stabilize, that doesn't mean people are still not going to become infected. And you still may have that 100 people a day or so who will unfortunately die from COVID-19. But you want to see is you don't want to go to the 125, then 150, then 2, and so on. You don't want to see that upward. You want to hopefully see it stable off at a certain point. Like for those of you who watch the American news, you see in New York City, they had estimated that they are over that peak period, where at one point they were having in the neighborhood of 800 people a day who were dying in the city of New York. Even though things have got somewhat better, but keep in mind they're still losing hundreds of people a day in New York City. So even though you're over that peak, there's still a lot of work that has to happen to ensure that you keep those numbers going down. Because if you let off measures too soon, and then it's not hard for those numbers to peak back up again, and then you're back to square one. With that said, that's the very thing that we're trying to avoid here in Kahnawake, is ensuring that we keep those numbers at zero, do everything we possibly can to keep those numbers at zero, and monitor what's happening out there, and see what can be done in the next couple of weeks. We made a commitment to the community that some of the measures will be reviewed in 2-week period, which was of last Wednesday. So we'll take a look in 2 weeks, in maybe 10 days or 12 days from now. We'll take a good look at all the measures that are in place and seeing, do we maintain the course? Do we make modifications? And how do we look at the next phase of this pandemic? So that work is always ongoing. We're always assessing what needs to be done. But my biggest concern is that we let off the measures too soon, and all the hard work that we had put into this as a community since day one will fall apart if we let things go loose too soon. So we have to maintain the course for now and continue to reassess and be mindful that just because we may see some light at the end of the tunnel, it's not time to let up the measures. It's not time to get lax. It's actually now, if more so, because we're at or approaching that peak. Now is the time to double down, to really, let's really hold the fort and see where we are in the next week and a half or so, and then do our full reassessment from there and see what the next steps are for our community. No, it's still going to be a long haul. Just because I'm saying we're a week and a half or so, don't think it's going to end in a week and a half. But certainly we have a better assessment and a better way of seeing where we are as a community, where we are within the region of Quebec, and how we're managing the situation. We'll have a really good snapshot and a really good assessment of where things are going in the weeks to follow. So with that, I'll leave it there for now. Tomorrow we do have another COVID-19 task force meeting, having updates, and I'll see you tomorrow. Kahnawake.
All right, now I'll go Lloyd. And just a little note, again, we're doing well here in Kahnawake so far. We have had, if you've been hiding under a rock, we have had people in Kahnawake who have contracted COVID-19. We've seen some of them in the media. A few people have been forthcoming about that. And, but we've been very fortunate that it has not hit our elders. So let's keep it that way. Elsewhere in Six Nations, about, well, several days ago now, they had their first person pass away from that. And Frank McCumber was just in here before we did the program talking about the Navajo Nation, which is really having a difficult time, and they've had significant number of people passing away out in their territory. So we have to stay the course. And with that, have a great rest of the weekend. Just a little note again, if you're taking the survey on how things are going in Kahnawake in terms of the COVID-19 task force, how you are doing, you know, how, just basically a set of questions on how things are going and how you're adapting. We ask you to go to Facebook, Kahnawake 911. You're there now. When you're finished watching this, if you want to take the survey, go ahead and do it. It's here. It's available here. Also at covid-19.kmhc.ca. So there you have it. It closes at midnight tonight. And with that, again, have a good rest of the weekend. Take care of yourselves, and we shall see you tomorrow. On behalf of all of us here, Nyauko Nano Onigiwahi.